I'm Keon.
And this is Inevitable, that podcast where we get shot point blank in the hand and don't react, because this week we watched E.S.P.
Written by Alan Fennel.
Directed by Ken Turner.
And aired on October 21st, 1970.
You know, I'm surprised. The biggest shock in this episode was the fact that they don't say E.S.P. like they say youth. There, yeah, I said it. We were all thinking it.
No, I actually wasn't. That's funny. That's a good point. I wasn't thinking that at all.
The second biggest shock of this episode is Straker taking just physical damage and not reacting at all. But,
yeah, that was the most impressive thing. We'll get there. It's at the very end.
I do like you texting me, man, Straker has the highest pain tolerance of anyone I've ever seen, and me being like, I don't even know what you're talking about because I haven't watched the episode yet. And then you being like, don't worry, you'll know it when you see it. And that being entirely true.
Not only does he not flinch at getting shot point blank in the hand, he doesn't even blink. He doesn't, and nor did he also uses that hand like a second later. If I remember correctly.
Yes. Yeah, well, he gets patched up pretty well, you know.
As I said before we started recording, if this was like a modern show, I would 100% guess that they were setting up that he has like some sort of supernatural ability. There would be no other like possible explanation besides that, or that it's like a show from 1970 and they're just going to drop this and it's just like a weird thing that's part of the show.
Ed Straker, secretly an alien running the organization dedicated to taking down aliens. What a twist.
Yeah, I know. Wouldn't that be like, if like all of Shadow's numerous failures so far were like, we're secretly like Straker's doing, and like every time they succeeded, he was, you know, low-key just like, damn.
Damn it.
And he's just like the most incompetent alien commander like that they have.
And actually the aliens keep coming to Earth to try and replace him.
Right.
And yet they keep continuing to fail.
Speaking of the alien lore, though, this episode kind of maybe subtly like expands on it a bit. It sort of elaborates on their like psychic abilities in a way.
Right.
A way that
and reveals a lot of there's actually like a surprising amount of lore dump in this episode about the aliens, even though the aliens themselves don't appear in the flesh.
Right. I don't realize I don't even have my notes open.
What? Keon! How dare you? Flying blind in this episode? How dare you? Not that we haven't done that multiple times across 4 podcasts.
Yeah, I'll speak for myself, but I think you are maybe in the same boat. Like, I didn't take notes for this. Well, I've always taken notes for this podcast, but for Trust Your Doctor, I didn't take notes for like the first 3 years of it.
Well, we both took notes when we recorded in person with each other. Well, when we watched in person with each other, we took notes, and then but that we only took notes when we were watching in person, and then there was randomly a week we couldn't watch in person. We're like, we better take some notes so that we know what happened. But then pretty quickly, like, it dropped off a cliff. We were like, yeah, you know what? I don't need to take notes. And I think you could tell there's a string of episodes where it's just like, what happened next? I don't remember what happened next. But yeah, I take notes now. I used to take notes on paper, and I still have like all the original like early Trust Your Doctor notes.
Damn, those could be.
Those are. I know
those could be
now.
worth a fortune. Like, I don't know, 100 years from now or something.
Yeah, you know, when like people turn Trust Your Doctor into some sort of cult, you know, give it a cult following. And people are like, yeah, I want every possible Trust Your Doctor. What's the word I'm looking
Just
for?
like production material or
yeah, prop behind the scenes item. I don't know.
there will. I don't think we'll be included in this, but I think there will come a time when like people want to do that kind of thing for podcasts where, you know, now people, no, I mean, for shows like UFO, even people kind of have that desire, right, to go behind the scenes and collect props and know all the details and pour over original scripts and stuff like this. I mean, just look at Making Blake 7 on Twitter, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, the great news for us is that we routinely document the behind the scenes of our show on the show. So people just have to listen to the show and then they'll get everything they ever wanted.
Yeah, true.
Anyway, I suppose we might as well start by describing this episode, which in true UFO fashion doesn't even begin with any of our main players. It begins with this absolutely unknown nobody, John Croxley.
I wouldn't call him an unknown. I think, you know, I would... Oh, shit. I didn't mean to do that. I closed it.
Just like...
I closed a tab that I didn't mean to close. Okay, anyway. I would bet that he has probably won some contest or award for just having, like, the most gross mouth in the UK or something like that. His teeth are flat out black. Like, it's not even like a question.
Yeah, my follow-up question would be like, was that John Stratton's actual mouth? In which case, then I just feel bad for making fun of it because maybe he just didn't have access to dental care as a child, or like was that a character like costuming choice that they decided on for the show?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would assume it's the former. Yeah.
I mean, that would be my assumption, but you never know. I mean, they made the guy playing the alien wear hard plastic contact lenses in this show, so like sapphire and steel style. Yeah. So
true enough, yeah. And then again, it is like sort of a meme or a stereotype, right? That British people have really bad teeth.
Yeah, I think that's a stereotype more than a meme.
Yeah, as someone with DNA from the British Isles, I guess you could say. Yeah, I relate to this pretty heavily since my teeth are like pretty bad.
I also have some DNA. Well, I have some DNA from England up my family tree, and the worst thing they did to my teeth was make my wisdom teeth come in sideways, and so that I had to have them removed and made them so difficult to be removed that when I went in to get two removed, it took them so long to remove one that I came out with an odd number of wisdom teeth.
Nice.
I've still randomly got 3 wisdom teeth. They were like, come back in a year, we need to let your mouth heal before we can remove the other one. And that was like 2 years ago now.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you never went back.
Well, I mean, I still go back to that dentist. I just like never went back to get my other wisdom tooth, my other bottom wisdom tooth removed. Mm-hmm. Just because that first experience was so painful.
I vaguely remember that, actually. I vaguely remember like recording in the wake of that.
Oh, geez. So anyway, yeah, teeth problems. Am I right?
Well, Croxley has bigger problems this plate, actually.
Yeah, because he sees his wife and he's like, "Wow, you came to surprise me at work, but would have been better if it was actually a surprise." And she's like, "Yeah, well, like, not like I can really surprise you when you can just read people's minds." She doesn't say that, but that's the vibe you get immediately following this when you find out that he can read people's minds.
Right. It starts like they don't actually come out and say it for a little bit, so it's kind of mysterious to start with, but you piece it together after like a minute or two, like, okay, he has psychic abilities.
You either piece it together in a minute or two from the episode, or you just remember that Keon read the like one sentence summary of this episode last week that said a man with ESP is co-opted by aliens, and you're like, this is the man, the titular man with ESP.
Yeah, or you just remember like the name of the episode is ESP.
We follow John Croxley fully for the first 10 minutes of the episode, and in true UFO fashion, I think this actually beats out Exposed, I think, for how long we go before we get the like conclusion of the opening credits, because 10 minutes in, and I'm being dead accurate here because I checked the timestamp, 10 minutes in, we're still getting... Actually, they don't even start the credits. Like, the UFO only comes on screen at the 9 minute and 40 seconds mark, and then we have all the credits after that.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's they do it like they always do, where they play the intro, and then there's sort of like a I don't know what you would call it, just like an interim period, and then you get the title, right?
Yeah, the stinger. I don't know. I don't think it's called a stinger.
Well, I think it has that effect, right? Where it's like they are definitely attempting here to put the title drop over a scene with impact.
Right.
And the actual way that they have the words come or the letters come onto the screen, I think, has some pretty big impact as well. It's sort of they sort of snake onto the screen, which I like quite a bit.
Yeah, the UFO snakes on. The U comes in, then the F, then the O. UFO. Maybe
they pronounce it as UFO to indicate that they are the foes, right, of humanity.
You are the foe of us. Maybe.
Another piece of Straker's master plan to mask the fact that he is working with the aliens.
Straker, you genius.
Well, so Croxley goes to the doctor. He's pretty hesitant to do this at first. His wife kind of talks him into it. Presumably he had an appointment already and was just going to flake on it.
Yeah, he had an appointment because he mentions to his wife, he tells her, he's like, hey, like, you shouldn't have come to visit me today. And she's like, why not? Oh, yeah, you're going to the doctor right now. You can't take me home. And he's like, yeah, I told you about it this morning.
Right. This is, it's sort of I don't know, it's a bit weird in hindsight, especially because, like, his wife, who obviously had a name, what was it? Stella. She was such a non-character, right? It was like she had a little bit to her, but really not that much. She was pretty much just there to die and give Croxley motivation to go up against Shadow. So,
that sounds like the name of a Bond movie, Just There to Die.
Yeah, I haven't even watched any James Bond, and I agree with that. Actually, that's not true. I have watched one James Bond movie. It was, I think it was Dr. No.
Probably. I mean, that's the first one.
Yes, it was that one. Yeah. It made
it
made me not watch anymore.
Yeah, because contrary to what people say, Dr. No is kind of like not a good movie.
Yeah, it's pretty boring. It was all right. It was all right.
Yeah, it's by far like one of the most boring Bond movies, and I've seen all of them 3 times. And I dread watching Dr. No every time because it's just like so boring. Maybe that's a hot take in the Bond fandom. I don't even know. I'm not deep enough in the Bond fandom to know if that's a hot take or not.
Well, I'll put it this way: as sort of an outsider to anything James Bond related, it wasn't one of the ones that I had constantly heard about.
That's fair. That makes sense, I think. Apparently, actually, on that topic, Michael Billingsworth, who plays Foster, was actually considered for the role of James Bond.
Oh, really?
At one point. Yeah, probably to replace Sean Connery. He was probably one of the people in the running to replace Sean Connery. I just found that out this week, which is why I haven't mentioned it before.
Yeah, that's interesting. Foster does return kind of in full force this week. He has a pretty large role to play in this episode.
Yeah, but in a position within Shadow that made me question, like, what the hell actually is Foster's job within Shadow?
Just to do what other people don't want to do, I guess. I don't know. Maybe that's why he's, like, kind of been a non-character for a while. Is like he's just been fetching coffee or something like this.
He's just been running fetch quests the whole time.
Well, so Croxley goes into the doctor's office, and we cut to a scene that, like, really explains visually why he doesn't want to go in, because they're just, like, clockwork oranging him in here.
That's the second time you've referenced Clockwork Orange on this season of Inevitable. I mean, it's an apt comparison, but also just weird. Yeah, they're basically torturing him. They've, like, strapped some, like, electrodes to his head, and I don't know if they're electrocuting him or reading some sort of, like, brain value, like, brain wave of his.
It's never made clear. What is very clear is that he's not comfortable with this whatsoever, and also
and that he's not going to come back.
That he's not going to come back. And what is also extremely clear is the doctor does not give a single damn about what he feels.
The doctor's like, oh, you don't want to come back? Well, when your mind's a little more clear, then you think about it, and I bet you'll be back. And Croxley's like, no, I don't think so. And the doctor's like, yeah, we'll see.
See you in a week, Croxley.
So Croxley escapes the doctor's torture chamber.
Meanwhile, a UFO is coming in hot.
Yeah, shockingly, meanwhile, at Shadow, Alec Freeman is tracking a UFO into the Earth's atmosphere. And shockingly, amazingly, once again, I'm just so blown away. I'm just completely shocked that once again, the moon-based interceptors completely and utterly missed their target. Last week you were like, well, they were just going too fast, but this week they were going at a completely regular speed, a completely normal speed. It was a weird kind of entry pattern, but they even reported a hit. Their equipment is so bad they thought they hit the UFO.
Yeah, in hindsight, what the heck was that? Because there is that element to the episode where they think that the UFO has been destroyed. It's completely destroyed. Yeah. Like the scanners stop picking it up, and then it just appears again. Was that ever expanded on or explained?
No, and I thought at first, remembering that this episode dealt with E.S.P, remembering that the title of the episode was E.S.P, remembering that somehow this guy Croxley gets co-opted by the aliens, I thought maybe, like, part of the reason, the UFO's coming in, we should mention, at this kind of erratic entrance.
It's zigzagging, basically.
And Freeman and Freeman and Moonbase Commander, what is it, Nina Barry? Is she the one who's in charge of Moonbase? I think so.
I think so, yeah.
It's either Barry or Ellis, looking here, but I think it's Barry in this episode. Both of them are confused as to why it's zigzagging, so I thought that, coupled with the episode being about ESP, that maybe this UFO is like fake, that it's like a psychic projection, yeah. Almost. Mm-hmm. But that turns out, they don't. I mean, that might be the case. I don't know, because they never expound upon. On what exactly is going on.
Yeah, they just kind of dropped after this. Or it's at least never made explicit. If it is expanded on, I guess neither of us picked up on it.
Yeah, so they shoot the UFO. They think they've got the UFO. Shocking twist. They don't have the UFO. They didn't get it. And this is, everybody is like, what's going on? How is the UFO still existing? We shot it down. And it's like, nope.
They turn on the red alert at this point. We've seen the moon base red alert, but I don't think we've seen the Earth base red alert.
The Earth base red alert?
Or rather heard the Earth red alert. Because it's like the most annoying, like, sound effect you could possibly, like, play in a workplace, I guess. It's just like, it seems like it would be a distraction, like actually deterring the UFO. Or maybe it would be a motivator, like, yeah, we have to get this thing out of the sky, or else we'll just keep it.
Yeah, the sooner we get it out of here, the quicker this noise will stop.
One way to motivate employees, I guess. Not really, but whatever.
Anyway, it's coming into the atmosphere, and they just neglect to launch skydiving.
They decide to mobilize the mobiles instead.
I guess because originally it was coming in at like landing speed, like it was going to land. Apparently in a large forest woodland section of
of where else but the UK.
At this point, also, Croxley has called his wife because as he was leaving the doctor's office, he says something like, "My wife's going to have a visitor today," and he calls her and asks her if her visitor has appeared. Also, they have a black cat, and I just have a note that's like, what is it with UFO and cats?
I think it's just that they're creepy. Like, if you get a cat's face from a certain angle, it's sort of it's like almost frightening.
So, yeah, she says no, nobody's come to visit. She doesn't know what Croxley's talking about at all, because she's not expecting a visitor. But Croxley seems convinced.
Right, and I think from Croxley's like demeanor and his personality, I think what is sort of being implied here is he believes that she's about to cheat on him, or is, or has been, or something like that. I don't know if that's just the impression I got.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. I don't necessarily know if that's the impression I got in the moment, but looking back on it, yeah, I can see how that would be. I would see how you could get that impression from that scene. I guess I just wasn't thinking about that in the moment.
Yeah, little does he know what is actually about to befall her and him.
Yeah.
So, did you think... Because I thought for the first time, when they mobilized the mobiles, I thought for the first time in the show that, like, we were getting some not great model work. I don't know. The quality wasn't as high as I think I've come to expect.
I don't know. I think it was fine. I just think it was fine. Maybe it was a little worse than the rest of the show, but I wasn't bothered with it, I guess.
I think part of it, too, is, like, a lot of the models we get are, they're able to have them be, like, against a backdrop of space, versus this one, which is, like, clearly, like, a miniature of a forest, which doesn't look as convincing.
That's honestly probably the explanation.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Oh well.
Oh well. It's not. It doesn't detract from any of the good model work we've had up to this point.
No, it doesn't detract from it. It flat out ruins it. No, I'm just kidding.
Why did I kind of expect that that's where you were going to go with that statement?
Shadow, for a secret organization, Shadow does just like print shadow on big letters on the sides of their vehicles. I wonder.
Not only that, in this episode, later on, I was going to mention this, but I might as well mention it now. Like, when Foster is in the hospital, Ed Strake is just like, I'll go get you discharged. And I'm like, yes, noted film executive Ed Straker is going to get him discharged unless, like, everybody at the hospital also happens to know that he's, like, head of Shadow, has major military clearance.
Right.
Like,
also, like, let's just mention, sucks to be Foster in this episode because, once again, he's kind of, in a way, not exactly, but sort of being gaslit in the same way he was in Exposed.
I know. I have a note that's like, yes, let's just gaslight. No, Foster's not even the only one getting gaslit in this episode. Straker pulls the same shit on Croxley at the end of the episode.
Hey, it's a post-Watershed show, you know? You can have your main character just do this kind of thing.
I mean, also, like, yeah, Foster's kind of the... Foster's kind of like the punching bag of UFO so far. So yeah, so the UFO starts increasing speed, and everyone's like, "Wait, what?" And they're like, "It's gonna crash. There's no way it's gonna land. Foster." They make a call to Foster that's like basically they're like lost rights. They're like, "Foster, you know what this means, right?" And Foster's like, "Yeah, I know what this means."
Meanwhile, Croxley is heading home. Again, sort of similar to Straker. He just lives out in the middle of the woods, I guess. So he's heading home. They've set up like a blockade around the area. And the UFO just barrels into his house. By barrels, I mean just takes like most of it out.
Yeah, just smashes right into it. Just smacks the side of the building. Just explodes completely. Actually explodes. And I wasn't clear on this in the moment, but this was confirmed in the next scene that it also like blows up the mobile that Foster's in.
Mm-hmm. Right, so it just causes massive amounts of damage, killing what was her name, Stella, and the cat presumably.
Stella, yeah.
Croxley.
No, the cat survives actually.
Oh, does it?
It does because we see it later, like when we go back to the bombed out house.
Oh wow! Hey, 9 lives. Croxley just faints. He just passes out.
He does have another one of those ESP-esque. I almost said ESPN. ESP-esque moments with the security guards guarding the kind of the perimeter, the exclusion zone, yeah. Mm-hmm. Where he basically implies that he knows why they're there, and he's like, yeah, I'm not gonna be able to get in. I know. And they're like, how do you know that?
Yeah, little did they know they were like going up against the one guy in the country with like E.S.P.
Little do they know they were going up against the one guy who could beat them.
It is a little. I wanted to talk about this at the end, but I guess this is an opportune moment. Like for UFO to introduce E.S.P. Like obviously it hasn't been a hard sci-fi show so far, but like. This is another step away from that. You know what I mean? They did it.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of went there with the cat with 10 lives.
That's true. This is another step, I guess.
In a way, watching it in this order, kind of the appearance of the cat clues you into what might be going on with Croxley. You know, because the last time we saw a cat on UFO, it was being psychically controlling someone through the influence of the aliens.
Yeah, and oh god, now this is just like theories are just popping into my brain, but I'm not going to elaborate on any of them because I sincerely don't think that anything in this episode is going to be followed up on.
All right. Nice. A true theoretician dropping a theory and then leaving.
I didn't even drop any theories. I just alluded to some that I may or may not have. But I guess what happens next is that what is it? Foster wakes up in the hospital, right? Or well, actually, I think Straker and Freeman they go into the remains of the house. We get sort of there's a pretty good set for the bombed out interior of the house.
Yeah. I mean, it is a little obvious that it's a set if you like just look over the top of the bombed out area and you see just like the studio wall in the background. But
that's why they went there at night. That's why those scenes were night.
Yeah, I mean, yes, actually, probably true.
Croxley also appears. He just like shows up at his house and realizes it's gotten bombed to hell. That his wife's dead.
Well, yeah, he shows up when when Straker and Freeman are there.
He blames Straker.
Yeah, he straight up is like, Straker, this is your job. This is your fault. You killed my wife.
And the moment Straker doesn't realize that his mind is being read, so he doesn't really react to this very much.
Yeah, he just kind of goes, okay. He's like, you've had a big shock. And he's like, no! I know exactly what happened. You killed my wife. Straker's like, I don't think that's true, but okay.
So, flash forward a bit. Foster's been hospitalized again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Straker walks into the room looking kind of like a priest. He's wearing a blue version of his normal outfit.
I don't know why I find that description so funny.
He starts talking to Foster, and he drops that like Foster has maybe been taking advantage of his hospital stay. Right? He's kind of, it's time for him to come back to work type thing, and he's not really coming back. So, but Foster has bigger problems. He says that there's someone in the hospital has been has been like spying on him or eavesdropping or something. I don't know.
Yeah, he thinks there's somebody who's peeking in on him, basically, who keeps looking through the window at him.
And Straker's like, yeah, all right, sure, buddy. Yeah, okay. Good boss. Great boss. So,
yeah, it is.
So Foster just basically thinks he's going insane again. And as soon as Straker leaves, he sees out of the corner of his eye, or rather, actually in a reflection, he sees Croxley.
Yeah, this is when Straker's like, "Don't worry, you're fit enough for work." Just compounding Straker being like a weird boss. He's like, "Well, if you're good enough, if you're like well enough to worry, you're well enough to work." So he tells him that he's gonna go get him discharged, basically. Thanks, Straker. Straker then makes his way back to Harlington Straker Studios, where Miss Eland is holding a package with an insane amount of stamps on it, like more than any reasonable person would put on a package.
Yeah, Shadow is basically about to get unibombed. Like,
Straker even makes a joke about this because Miss Eland's like, well, like, I've run it through the analyzer and it's just paper. And Straker says, wow, for that amount of stamps, I would expect a small atom bomb at least.
Yeah. So he opens it up. There's no bomb, but there is just like weapons grade anthrax packed into the envelope, spreads throughout the room, killing them all. No. It's just it's like a booklet. This is a later scene. Actually, the scene right after this confirms that it's been a month since the previous scene.
Yeah, because Foster was like in the hospital in a coma, I don't know, for a month. Also, apparently, Foster's co-pilot is just dead, like got killed by that UFO crash.
Mm-hmm. So Straker's flipping through this booklet, and it's a film script for UFO, the show that we're watching.
I know. Meta. I was having.
So he calls in.
I was having like flash forward moments to the Marvel TV show Loki, the final episode, they meet like the guy who's been in charge of this organization that basically maintains the timeline, and the guy just he keeps avoiding their attacks, and he just drops this giant book on the table. It's like, I bet you've been wondering how I've been avoiding everything. Well, it's because I already know everything that's going to happen. And then he just like shows them basically the script for that episode. He's like, see here, this is what you're gonna say, and this is me saying this right now, pointing at this page. I just had flashbacks to that watching this scene. I was like, oh God, Croxley.
Never-ending story. So, oh God, what was I going to say? Damn, it was going to be funny.
Yeah, it must not have been that funny.
I hate when people say that, actually. It's like, well, if you forgot, it must not have been that important. It's like, well, actually, I just forgot to, like, I don't know, do my taxes or something like that. So, so here comes the IRS. Like,
uh-oh. Uh-oh.
So, okay, Straker calls Alec in. He's like, Alec, look at this. And Freeman flips to the script, and he's like, hey, this is pretty good. You gonna produce this one?
And he's... Straker's like, what are you, insane?
Right, and he then, like, delineates what it is, which is basically it's a detailed script full of top secret information on Shadow, like we already mentioned.
And so this whole episode, Freeman's been like wanting to close this case. He's like, it's closed. The UFO crashed. There were no alien survivors. And Straker's like, no, something feels weird. And now Straker's like, yeah, you see, Croxley got something weird going on with him. I knew it. I knew this wasn't over.
I know he speculates as to what this could be. He correctly guesses E.S.P. as one of his guesses, but for another thing he says is like, could have just been a lucky guess. And I'm like, he like, as far as we know, he like completely accurately detailed Shadow. Like, what are the chances of just like guessing, right? So I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, they go to they somehow find out about Croxley's doctor, and they go and visit him.
Well, because they had on record that he was receiving like psychiatric help, basically. And so in order to discern more about what's going on with Croxley, they decided to go visit the doctor. Yeah,
amazing doctor here, just keeping his patients' records completely private. He just shuts them out and does his, full duty. And no, he tells them everything.
Yeah, he just gives everything away.
Yeah.
Like, okay, yeah, sure.
His doctor's just like, yeah, he has psychic powers. And
it's causing him issues. It's causing him to descend into mental illness.
Yeah, and so instead of, like, potentially helping this person whose wife has just been killed by a UFO and is now going through mental anguish, like, quintupled probably by his E.S.P. abilities, Straker and Freeman decide to just stake out the house, like, nefariously.
Well, the doctor tells them that he called the doctor earlier that day expecting Straker and Freeman to show up, and told him to tell them to meet him at the house at 10 o'clock that evening.
Mm-hmm. So they do. It's obviously some sort of trap, but they don't really have much of a choice. They venture into the wreckage once again. And
meanwhile, also, I want to mention that basically every doctor in this show is like really bad, because Foster is meeting with the Shadow Doctor and he's like, look, things are weird. I don't know what's going on. I just feel like I'm being watched. And the doctor's just like, yeah, you're fine. Like, you're just fine. But if you really think that, the only way to fix it is to confront your fears and go back to the house and put everything to rest. Great advice, Doctor. I mean, it works out really great for everybody involved, but like, great.
Yeah,
just great.
Maybe this doctor has like freaking ESP too. Just he's reading the situation, just being like, "You're going to be needed at the house pretty soon, Foster." I don't actually think that. Anyway, Croxley shows up. He's got a gun. He has it trained on Alec and Straker. Tells them to drop their weapons. And then he goes into sort of his backstory, his villain monologue, his villain origin story. It's pretty simple. He's had the ESP powers, or he's had the ESP ability all his life, ever since he was a kid, and was tormented, bullied, and abused for it.
Yep.
That's basically it.
Yeah, he talks about how his powers have grown stronger, and then Straker uses gaslight. It's super effective.
I know, yeah.
He goes, think about it, Croxley. Did you ever think that maybe the aliens have been improving your powers specifically so that you can come here to kill us? Did you ever think about that, Croxley? Did you?
Well, as far as the episode shows us, Straker is right about this, right? Like,
I don't know. The alien died in the crash. And there were no other aliens present in this episode. To me, it's left completely up in the air whether Straker's right about this or not.
Yeah, I guess that's true. His claim at the end then, like, yeah, is a little bit suspect, I guess.
But anyway, Croxley's like,
Yeah, well, okay, so, and just to, like, make it clear, what Straker believes here, or is at least what he's telling Croxley he believes, is that the aliens are using Croxley as a mouthpiece to speak through. And but that is like it is a little, I think, you're right, it's not confirmed, but there's a hint that it kind of is, where like Croxley talks about like how his planet has, like, the resources have been depleted and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So he has that. It's like two lines. One is like the resources were depleted. Another one was something else I forgot. That those kind of indicate that he's being controlled. But then you could just say that like his ESP is going haywire and he's reading Straker's mind, and Straker wants to believe this, and he's sort of like, maybe he has like some empath powers as well or something, and he's kind of just mimicking this because once again his ESP is going haywire and it's getting stronger. So I don't know.
Yeah, I guess that is, you're right, kind of a confirmation that this is probably the aliens. Yeah,
this is another wrinkle in the alien plan, though, if it is, because before they speculated that the aliens were coming to, well, first they thought it was just for human organs, and then they expanded that to full human bodies, and now, if this is an alien speaking, we're getting, straight from the horse's mouth that they're here because their planet has been like
is being destroyed, basically.
Right, in a manner similar to Earth. So they're kind of setting up like an environmental thing to this, right, where the resources have been completely depleted.
Yeah, he basically has a couple lines here. Let me just look at my notes here, because I wrote one of them down. Oops, that's my notes for Question of Priorities. This scrolled too far. He says, we must come to Earth to survive. We're fighting for existence.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, they're being held at gunpoint. Straker and Alec, that is. And then Foster shows up and shoots him in the back.
Right. So okay, first, Croxley, like we've been saying for the entire episode, because it is just the most WTF moment of this episode, like he shoots Straker in the hand, point blank, Straker does not react. And then, yeah, like you said, Croxley dies. Straker has this line that, oh god, like, if this is just a bluff or like like we said before, like a gaslight, whatever, like, he says, like, he says he believes in the final moments Croxley regained control from the alien and sacrificed himself, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I believe it. I don't know. Why not? You know what? Why not? Straker's never led us wrong before. Right?
It's becoming more clear how much of a kind of anti-hero he is. It doesn't seem that way from okay, actually it does from Exposed, but it doesn't seem that way from episode 1, and then Exposed comes along and you're like, okay, I'm all right, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, whatever, and then like he just keeps doing these things that, you know. It's like it's like when you have an acquaintance or a friend, right, and they and you've known them for a long time, and all of a sudden they say something that, like, I don't know, like, is like very suspect or something like that, and you just go like, oh, okay, well, that was weird, but whatever, and then they just keep saying, you know, odd things or things that you know don't approve of, whatever, and then you're like, all right. But yeah, Foster saves the day. Foster's extremely, I guess, loyal to Shadow, just after what they put him through, seemingly week after week.
I know, imagine if this was the second episode, or the third episode after Exposed, Foster joins Shadow, and then immediately the next week is like doubting Shadow, being gaslit again in a coma.
Right, or like even you know, what was it? Yeah, it was Conflict, right? Yeah, where he was Conflict, he was just willing to sacrifice himself for Shadow.
Classic Foster maneuver, you know. Classic Foster maneuver, honestly.
And so, yeah, that's basically where the episode ends. Straker uses his hand with a friggin' hole through it to close Croxley's eyes.
We then get a scene of Straker and Freeman drinking to another successful case closed.
Do we? I completely excised that from my mind, I guess. I don't remember that.
Yeah, they go, wow, that was a weird time. And Straker makes a toast to fear and fate, and Freeman's like, what do you mean? And then Straker has this line I wrote down because it was kind of, I don't know, I felt some kind of way about it. He says, it's fear of the unknown that keeps us alert. When the answers come, it will be fear that helps us recognize them.
Basically just essentially convincing himself that E.S.P. is not a worthwhile power. He's obviously extremely jealous of Croxley and has to jump through these mental hoops to convince himself that not having E.S.P. is a boon.
Nice. Way to just rain on his parade.
Well, it is like, it does not introduce, but it is like kind of revelatory of like what this episode is kind of getting at thematically, which is maybe not as cohesive as it should be, where it's like, this is an episode about a guy who can completely read people's minds from seemingly far distances, and he just knows what everyone's thinking at all times, and about how like that was his undoing or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Like I said, it doesn't, to me, it's not as cohesive as it probably, as maybe Alan Fennel believed it to be or something like that. I don't know. Especially because especially, and I think probably primarily because you kind of feel bad for Croxley throughout the entire thing. Right. He's never really like, obviously he is sort of the main antagonist of the episode, but you don't ever see him really as a villain.
Yeah, he's just a victim of circumstance.
Right. If maybe he was I don't know, sort of ready to rebel against Shadow or the world or whatever and uses ESP for more nefarious purposes, then maybe, I don't know, this would hit him more or something like that. Whatever.
We also I don't know. We kind of skipped the scene where he almost shoots Foster in the back. So I'd argue that trying to murder Foster and Freeman might be nefarious purposes in a way,
Yeah. But it's just like Straker, where he's set up as like this. Straker's set up as like this paragon, this morally upright guy, and so you have that impression, and it's hard to, even after all he's done, it's hard to rid yourself of that impression. Whereas Croxley, he's kind of in the same boat. He's set up as like this victim and this sympathetic character, and once you have that, it's hard to get rid of that, even when he is pointing a gun at our main characters.
Right.
Overall, I thought this was one of the better episodes that we've watched so far. Probably second only to whatever the one last week was called. I can't even remember. Question of Priorities.
Yeah, I did really like this episode. I thought it was really well done. The tension was well built. I liked Croxley as a character. I think partially because, like you said, he's not an explicit villain. He's a victim of circumstance. Which is basically also true of Question of Priorities. There isn't really a clear antagonist in that episode. A lot of the other episodes we've gotten in this show, except maybe Exposed, have had clear antagonists. Identified it was the alien that crashed. Cat with 10 Lives, it was...
It was the cat.
Yeah, it was the cat. Conflict, it was... it was the aliens that kept shooting down all the ships, but also in a way the head of the Astrophysical Commission or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that was just my point, is that I liked this, I think partially because it was not clear. There wasn't a clear antagonist. He was just kind of... He was the antagonist by circumstance, but not by motivation necessarily.
Yeah, it adds a few wrinkles to the lore of the aliens and stuff like that, which is good, and kind of it ends open-endedly, even though it is, it does seem to be the case that Croxley is being used by the aliens as a mouthpiece, like we said. It's still, that leaves you that hint of doubt, so it makes it a little more interesting.
Yeah.
And it makes, and yeah, you know what? Actually, I take back what I said before. Straker is completely right. It's like that hint of doubt is what makes it interesting, right? So if you could just read the minds of, I don't know, the writers or the production crew or the characters in the episode or something like this, and you wouldn't have that doubt anymore. Everything would just be completely clear and boring.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Wow.
He was right. Straker was right.
Straker, you absolute madman. I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I said everything I wanted to say about this episode, so guess talk about my Shadow's questionable move of the week, which is just, I don't know, gaslighting Foster, gaslighting Croxley, gaslighting everywhere. Should have named this episode Gaslight.
Yeah, just mentally torment your employees. That's it. It's a good management style, method, whatever.
Yeah, are you telling me that it's not? Are you telling me that I was wrong all along?
Oh, God. How you can tell someone is like a a filthy corpos if they use the term management style.
I feel like you can tell someone's a filthy corpo if they use the phrase filthy corpo.
Yeah.
Wow, I never thought I'd see the day, hear the day, rue the day that you would say filthy corpo.
Well, anyway, Croxley. He was played by an actor.
Wow, shocking.
One of Britain's 10, in fact.
Wow. Wow, whatever will I come up with next?
By name of John Stratton. Now, John Stratton has over 100 acting credits on InternetMovieDatabase.com. He's been in some things that we've heard of. He's been in some things that we've watched. So let's just go through a few of them. Incredibly prolific career here that started at the end of the 1940s. He was in Island Rescue, Decision Against Time. What else here? He was in BBC Sunday Night Theatre, so all of these Saturday Playhouse, all these theater shows. He was in Quatermass in the Pit, a show that has been on our radar for years at this point. The Secret Kingdom. What else here? It's Dark Outside. The Newcomers. Softly, Softly, one episode of it. Letters from the Dead. The 1968 Sherlock Holmes. A show called Detective, simply enough. The Black Tulip might be sort of a predecessor to Black Orchid or something like that. Who knows? You know, I don't know.
Oh boy.
Probably not. Coronation Street as a recurring character over the course of 8 episodes. Fall of Eagles, Trinity Tales. I don't know what that is, but sounds cool. He's on Zed Cars and 7 episodes of it at that. Forget Me Not. Backs to the Land. The Mill on the Floss. The Good Companions. Great Expectations. He was in Doctor Who. He played Shockeye in The Two Doctors.
Oh, yeah. Wow. I kind of excised that story from my mind for a little while there, but you've brought it back.
I haven't brought it back for myself. I can't recall who Shockeye is.
He was the guy who yeah. I had to pull up the picture to make sure I was remembering the right guy. The guy with the orange eyebrows and the like.
Oh yeah. Wow. What?
Yeah.
That episode also had what's her face who played Servalan in Blake 7.
Jacqueline Pierce, right?
Jacqueline Pierce. Yeah. Oh my god.
It also had Patrick Troughton, who played the second Doctor.
Yeah. Wow. What a star-studded cast that was. His last acting credit was in 1992 on a show called Screen 2.
Amazing.
That was actually posthumous because he died on October 25th, 1991 at the age of 65. So relatively young, I guess. Not young, but like, yeah, in his 60s, so.
That is relatively young. Well, I looked up Deborah Stanford, who played Mrs. Croxley, Stella Croxley. She has a very short acting career. This was her second to last role, in fact, even though she lived to 2005. So her last role was Fraud Squad, 1970. And then, let's see, Mogul, A Touch of Love, The World of Wooster, Front Page Story, Emergency Ward 10, Target Luna. I just kind of picked a couple things that looked really big. And that's it. Like I said, only 16 acting credits. We do have an email this week to read from Steven. Subject line UFO ESP. This was episode 25 in the order I watched, so the penultimate one. During the opening credits, I thought it was an eyesore having the white text against the lighter side of the moon. For some reason, whenever a UFO crashes, it tends to be funny. Especially, E.S.P capitalized, when it crashes into Croxley's house here. I thought it was odd when after Croxley was shot to death, you could still see his eyelids moving. I wonder if there's an in-universe explanation for this. Maybe Season 2 would have explained this. Your recent comment about custom episode titles for the podcast has made me try out a new hobby, figuring out what the custom titles for these inevitable episodes might have been. For conflict, I guess this episode sucked, which Keon said and made me laugh while I was brushing my teeth. Or maybe Dylan's, that's what happens when you don't clear debris, which made Keon laugh. For a question of priorities, I said things like Die with Style and later silly sci-fi and deep space, though when referring to what I expected from Star Cops. Oh, and I later said tainting the concentration of decorative vegetable stew. There's also Dylan's This is a Bionicle podcast now, and Ludicrous Display last night, and from Keon we got Why I Mend Things That Are Potentially Wrong. Also, I'm surprised none of us made a John dies at the end joke when talking about a question of priorities. Thinking back to that episode, I'd like to imagine that the actor playing the driver was not supposed to get screen time at all, and he snuck into frame to get his 5 seconds of fame before Ed Bishop pushed him away. Not so related, but early and inevitable, Keon said Arrival was lame, and I agreed, but then he corrected himself as he meant Annihilation, a movie I actually enjoyed. Guess that's just another hot take from me. Cheese, Steven.
Yeah, I'm on the complete opposite side of the fence. I've now watched Arrival, and obviously I've watched Annihilation. I think Arrival is pretty good, surprisingly enough.
I agree.
Yeah, whereas Annihilation isn't. You're completely right, though, Stephen. When the UFOs crash, it is like usually pretty funny. I think that's just us watching with our 2022 glasses on and just looking at what kind of look like. You know, obviously the model work and the sets and everything for the show are like pretty great, but it's hard. It's hard like to watch this in the 21st century and not have in the back of your mind that it's a little hokey.
Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, maybe.
It could also
I think the model work is really good. But
yeah, I do too. It could also just be that, like, the UFOs, like, it kind of looks like they're committing suicide every week because they just, like, crash, like, full speed into things.
I think one of the things you have to remember, though, is that we are getting, like, a Blu-ray HD scan now. I mean, if you're watching this on IMDb TV, anyway.
I'm not.
And when this was made... it would look a little less hokey, even just because you would be watching it on a 240p TV screen, right?
Yeah, it's probably like 7 inches.
It's like, have you ever seen those pictures? You know, this like, why did pixel art look so much better when I was a kid? And then it shows like the actual raw pixel art graphic, and then it shows it like what it looked like on a CRT. Right. And because of the separation of pixels, it looked like way better, even though the actual art itself didn't change at all. It's just because of the actual TV screen, it looked better. It's kind of the same thing here, maybe.
Yeah, and people could have even been like, this was 1970, so like not even everyone had a color TV at that point. Like you could have been watching UFO in black and white.
Yeah. Exactly.
So we also had some comments here from none other on Twitter, replies or whatever, I guess, from none other than Crinoid Podcast, aka Jim, who's been on the show before. He was on almost, I think like 2 years ago at this point for our Children of the Stones finale.
Yeah.
Or was it the finale, or was it? It was a finale, right?
I think it was the finale,
yeah. Anyway, he says, just started listening, fellas. Watched Ep 1 last night, and I'm listening to your first Ep now. Don't know if anyone has answered this, but I'd say almost everyone in the UK would say UFO. Some people said UFO for a while, but I think that trend may have passed. As far as the lascivious camera work and outfits are concerned, I think Jerry Anderson was very keen to make UFO more adult than anything he'd done before. See also the amount of blood in the opening sequence and the hard drinking and smoking throughout. Now, Dylan and I were talking about this beforehand. I both of us, I guess, have noticed the hard drinking and smoking throughout. End quote.
Yes.
But neither of us, I think, has noticed the blood in the opening sequence. I guess maybe we're just either not paying attention, or I don't know what the answer is, but neither of us have noticed it.
Maybe it's because, like other shows, I just I start to tune out the intro sequence after the first episode.
Yeah. You only really watch it like with full attention once, and then after that you don't anymore. You know what? Why the hell not? I'm just gonna play it right now and see if I see any blood. I'm not gonna have it be with sound on because I don't know. That just seems like it could copyright us or something like that. So,
well, while you do that, I'll just explain that I have my final note for this episode is a humorous note that I'm only mentioning because I know Keon would absolutely never want to see this. But I got an ad at the end of the episode from IMDb TV for an IMDb TV exclusive TV show, that they made. And the ad started with tens of thousands of bugs stolen from a bug museum. And then it was just shots of bugs for like 30 seconds. There was a guy whose a tarantula crawled out of his mouth. I'm like, what am I watching? What the hell is this?
That sounds like some sort of, I don't know, ultra disguised like fetish someone had or something, and they just made this show out of it. I'm halfway through the intro sequence, more than halfway. I haven't seen any blood yet. Imagine if someone just gets, like, their head blown off at the end and we never noticed it. No, again, maybe I'm just not paying enough attention, but I'm not seeing any blood. There is a massive explosion at the end. I forgot about that, actually. A UFO gets blown up. But, yeah, I believe you.
Somehow we didn't even mention Straker getting shot point blank in the hand and not reacting when we got to that
I think
scene.
we did. I was pretty sure we did.
Oh, I was only thinking of it now because you do see his hand like covered in blood in the next shot.
Right, yeah, you do. There's blood within the episode. This one at least, for sure. But yeah, thanks for the comments there, Jim.
Yeah, thanks for the comments, Jim. Appreciate it. Always nice to hear from you.
Thanks for the email, Stephen. I don't think we actually said that, but...
Yeah, thanks for the email too, Stephen. No, just kidding. Yeah, thanks for reaching out, everybody. Always good to hear from the fans. And if you would like to reach us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decadavevegetable.com. Questions and comments and concerns and angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on UFO. You can find us on YouTube at Decade Vegetable. You can find us anywhere podcasts are at Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook. Trust your doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast. And follow us on Twitter. Next time, we're going to be watching Kill Straker. Foster and his lunar module co-pilot, Captain Frank Craig, are brainwashed by aliens to kill Straker. But until then, the end.